Profitability analysis. Profitability ratios provide insights into a bank's ability to generate profits from its operations. These ratios help assess the efficiency and effectiveness of the bank's revenue-generating activities, cost management, and overall financial viability. Key profitability ratios to be discussed include 1. Return on assets ROA measures the bank's capacity to generate profits from its total assets. A higher ROA indicates more efficient utilization of the bank's assets and better overall financial performance. 2. Return on equity ROE reflects the bank's ability to generate profits from the equity capital invested by shareholders. A higher ROE suggests the bank is effectively using its equity capital to generate profits. 3. Return on deposit evaluates the bank's profitability in relation to its deposit base. A higher ROD indicates the bank is generating more profits from its deposit-taking activities. 4. Profit margin measures the bank's ability to control expenses and generate profits from its operations. A higher profit margin suggests the bank is more efficient in its cost management and revenue generation. 5. Profit-expense ratio assesses the bank's efficiency in generating profits relative to its operating expenses. A higher ratio indicates the bank is more efficient in converting its expenses into profits.
Return on assets ROA. ROA measures the bank's capacity to generate profits from its total assets. It is calculated as the ratio of net profit to total assets. Hsbc Amanah's ROA has fluctuated between 0.019 and 0.028 from 2013 to 2022. This means that for every RM1 of total assets, Hsbc Amanah was able to generate between 1.9 and 2.8 cents in net profits during the analysis period. A higher ROA indicates more efficient asset utilization and better financial performance. A higher ROA suggests the bank is effectively using its assets to generate profits, which is a desirable trait for investors and depositors.
Return on equity. ROE reflects the bank's ability to generate profits from the equity capital invested by shareholders. It is calculated as the ratio of net profit to total equity. Hsbc Amanah's ROE has ranged from 0.154 to 0.317 during the analysis period. This means that for every RM1 of equity capital, Hsbc Amanah was able to generate between 15.4 and 31.7 cents in net profits. A higher ROE suggests the bank is effectively using its equity capital to generate profits. A higher ROE is generally preferred by shareholders, as it indicates the bank is efficiently utilizing the capital invested in the bank.
Return on deposit ROD evaluates the bank's profitability in relation to its deposit base. It is calculated as the ratio of net profit to total deposits. Hsbc Amanah's ROD has varied between 0.027 and 0.066 from 2013 to 2022. This means that for every RM1 of deposits, Hsbc Amanah was able to generate between 2.7 and 6.6 cents in net profits. A higher ROD indicates the bank is generating more profits from its deposit-taking activities. A higher ROD suggests the bank is efficiently utilizing its deposit base to generate profitable lending and investment opportunities.
Profit margin measures the bank's ability to control expenses and generate profits from its operations. It is calculated as the ratio of net profit to total revenue. Hsbc Amanah's profit margin has ranged from 0.305 to 0.464 during the analysis period. This means that for every RM1 of revenue, Hsbc Amanah was able to generate between 30.5 and 46.4 cents in net profits. A higher profit margin suggests the bank is more efficient in its cost management and revenue generation. A higher profit margin indicates the bank is able to effectively control its expenses and generate a larger proportion of profits from its operations.
Profit-expense ratio. The profit-expense ratio assesses the bank's efficiency in generating profits relative to its operating expenses. It is calculated as the ratio of net profit to total expenses. Hsbc Amanah's profit-expense ratio has fluctuated between 0.554 and 0.706 from 2013 to 2022. This means that for every RM1 of expenses, Hsbc Amanah was able to generate between 55.4 and 70.6 cents in net profits. A higher ratio indicates the bank is more efficient in converting its expenses into profits. A higher profit-expense ratio suggests the bank is able to generate a larger proportion of profits from its operating expenses, which is a desirable characteristic for financial institutions.
Liquidity analysis. 1. Current ratio. The current ratio is a liquidity ratio that measures a bank's ability to pay short-term obligations. It is calculated by dividing a bank's current assets by its current liabilities. As shown in the figure, HSBC Amanah Malaysia's current ratio has remained relatively stable between 1.14 and 1.24 over the past 10 years. A current ratio above 1 indicates that the bank has sufficient current assets to cover its short-term liabilities, suggesting a healthy liquidity position. However, a ratio that is too high may also indicate that the bank is not efficiently utilizing its current assets. Cash deposit ratio. The cash deposit ratio measures a bank's ability to meet its short-term obligations through its cash holdings. It is calculated by dividing a bank's cash and cash equivalents by its total deposits. The figure shows that HSBC Amanah Malaysia's cash deposit ratio has remained relatively stable, ranging between 0.13 and 0.15 over the past 10 years. A higher cash deposit ratio indicates that the bank has a larger proportion of its deposits held in cash and cash equivalents, which can help the bank meet its short-term obligations more easily. However, a ratio that is too high may also suggest that the bank is not efficiently utilizing its cash resources. Loan deposit ratio. The loan deposit ratio measures a bank's ability to fund its lending activities through its deposit base. It is calculated by dividing a bank's total loans by its total deposits. Loan deposit ratio equals total loans total deposits. The figure shows that HSBC Amanah Malaysia's loan deposit ratio has fluctuated between 0.77 and 0.90 over the past 10 years. A lower loan deposit ratio indicates that the bank has a surplus of deposits compared to loans, which could suggest a conservative lending strategy or underutilization of its deposit base. Conversely, a higher ratio may indicate that the bank is relying heavily on its deposit base to fund its lending activities, which could potentially increase its liquidity risk. Cash ratio. The cash ratio is a liquidity ratio that measures a bank's ability to repay its short-term liabilities with its most liquid assets, such as cash and cash equivalents. It is calculated by dividing a bank's cash and cash equivalents by its current liabilities. Cash ratio equals cash and cash equivalents current liabilities. As shown in the figure, HSBC Amanah Malaysia's cash ratio has remained relatively stable, ranging between 0.24 and 0.29 over the past 10 years. The cash ratio is a more conservative measure of a bank's liquidity compared to the current ratio, as it only includes the bank's most liquid assets in the numerator. A higher cash ratio indicates that the bank has a larger proportion of its current liabilities covered by its most liquid assets, suggesting a stronger ability to meet its short-term obligations. A cash ratio of 0.5 or higher is generally considered a healthy level, as it indicates that the bank has sufficient cash and cash equivalents to cover at least 50% of its current liabilities. HSBC Amanah Malaysia's cash ratio, while relatively stable, has remained below 0.5, suggesting that the bank may not have an extremely high liquidity buffer in the form of cash and cash equivalents. Overall, HSBC Amanah Malaysia's liquidity ratios suggest a stable and healthy liquidity position, with the bank maintaining appropriate levels of current assets, loans, and cash to meet its short-term obligations. The debt-equity ratio of HSBC Amanah Malaysia Berhad fluctuated between 0 and 0.2989 from 2014 to 2022. This ratio reflects how much the bank finances its operations through debt compared to shareholder equity. A comprehensive analysis of the bank's capital structure is necessary to understand the underlying factors influencing variations in the DER over time, covering financial leverage, equity composition, and debt levels. By implementing these strategies, HSBC Amanah Malaysia Berhad can optimize its capital structure, manage debt effectively, and strengthen its financial position. The debt-to-total assets ratio of HSBC Amanah Malaysia Berhad fluctuated between 0 and 0.040 from 2014 to 2022. This ratio measures the proportion of a company's assets that are financed through debt. A DTAR of 0 in 2014 indicates the bank relied solely on equity to finance its assets, while the gradual increase to 0.040 in 2017 suggests the bank began incorporating more debt financing alongside equity during this period. Since 2018, the DTAR has remained relatively stable, ranging between 0.028 and 0.033, indicating a consistent use of debt relative to total assets to maintain a balanced capital structure and optimize the DTAR. The equity multiplier ratio of HSBC Amanah Malaysia Berhad has shown fluctuations over the years, indicating shifts in the bank's financing strategy. In 2013, the EM was notably high at 291.29, reflecting a heavy reliance on equity to finance assets, which signifies financial stability and lower risk. However, by 2017, the EM dropped significantly to 26.93, suggesting a substantial increase in debt financing or a decrease in total equity, potentially indicating a riskier strategy. Since 2018, the EM has gradually increased, ranging between 27.94 and 33.59, indicating a return to a more equity-focused financing approach, possibly aiming for a balance between risk and stability. The loan-to-deposit ratio of Hsbc Amanah Malaysia Berhad has shown fluctuations over time, impacting the bank's funding strategy and liquidity. The ratio gradually increased between 2013 and 2015, indicating a shift towards more lending activities compared to deposits. While the LDR has fluctuated both above and below 1.0 in other years, this variation reflects the bank's approach to lending and funding. An LDR below 1.0 suggests the bank has more deposits than loans, indicating a stronger liquidity position and lower reliance on external borrowing. Conversely, an LDR exceeding 1.0 implies the bank is extending more loans than it has in deposits, potentially increasing its risk exposure.